Bills and the Jets, Monday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers' debut. Titanic game in the AFC East early season. What do we got here? Buffalo and Gang Green.
Most sportsbooks open at this point spread incredibly small, either as a pick or with one team a very small favorite. Mostly pick as the opener. If there was action, it was on the Bills to just push this out a little bit so far. There has not been a lot of bets. I don't even think the volume on this game is that big yet for being like a high-profile game. But we moved from basically pick or one to like 1 or 1.5 for Buffalo. So Buffalo is favored everywhere in this game now. No picks left. Jets aren't favored anywhere. Just whether it's 1 or 1.5. Now, obviously, this would be an if I did it kind of a thing. If you love teasers so much you want to use them in week 1, pretty big difference between 1 and 1.5 to get the Jets to 7.5 if you were so inclined. I wouldn't tease week 1 games, but that's like an if I did it kind of a thing. Total in the game has been bet down a little bit. Open 47, 46.5 right now. So not a ton of movement, and we're not remotely close to a key number. My guess would be that this would never go off with either team favored by 3 unless there was a significant injury. And right now there hasn't been one. So we can kind of argue or just go back and forth on who's going to close the favorite by how much. But, you know, I don't think we're going to hit a point where, oh, we hit 3, so I like this side as a dog or something like that. It's going to be like a pick the winner game almost entirely, maybe with some like potential teaser action on the Jets if you liked it. I think it's like, how do you feel about the Jets a lot? I think they have the potential to be a Super Bowl winning team. I really do. I don't think there are a lot of teams that fit that description either, and they're one. Are they going to realize that potential? I don't know. But I think I like them even more than the market does a little bit from a rating standpoint. The defense has a ton of room to actually be even better than it was last year, and all the key pieces are basically still there and all in their prime or even like getting better. And if the offense is like, God, what were they in DVOA offense last year? 26th. What did they go? 7 and 10? Is that what their record was last year?
And again, like I know people know this, but just to reiterate, right? Like the Jets have good players on offense. They were held back by some of the worst quarterback play in like recent memory in the National Football League, and now it's a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback coming in, who may not be what he was in the past, but like definitely going to be better.
It's possible.
Might be like I don't think he's like Russell Wilson washed. Like that's like the new wash scale is Russell Wilson.
But we don't even know if Russell Wilson was washed. Apparently that was all Nathaniel Hackett's fault. I don't know. That's what I was told recently.
He's washed. Yeah. I think he's washed.
The ceiling here is astronomical because they were so bad, and just any kind of growth immediately makes them a playoff team. Honestly, if the defense is remotely close to as good as they were last year, and it's like a defensive coordinator turned head coach who's really good with like all the pieces. So like maybe it's not as good, but like it's not going to be bad. Like it won't be bad unless everyone gets hurt. So I think their potential is really high. I really think, like, I know it's like a lot of people like them. They've been bet up. The win total's 9.5 juiced over. I know there's a contrarian case for why this isn't going to work. I think their ceiling is to win the Super Bowl, and there's probably only like 7 or 8 teams where I feel that way.
You know, I'm kind of a little down on Buffalo. I don't know if you're like down on Buffalo, but I think I would have to acknowledge, and even the Bills' kind of harshest critics would. Yeah, I think even like the harshest critics of Buffalo this year would have to acknowledge that the Bills are one of those teams that can win the Super Bowl, that can just reference like the Jets are, and like Buffalo also has to be in that mix. I feel like
can I ask you a question
now?
Who is more likely to win the Super Bowl this year? Because the Bills have lower odds to win the Super Bowl. Who is more likely to win the Super Bowl this year, the Bills or the Jets?
It might be the Jets.
I think it's not close to the Jets. Not that, I think Buffalo can win.
I don't know if I go that far. I don't know if I go that far.
Well, Buffalo,
it's
it's not that Buffalo's 0, but like, I don't know, like the way that the rosters are constructed, quarterbacks, coaches, what is the ceiling for each team in the playoffs? Oh man, I think the Jets have a higher ceiling. And I know it's like, oh, well, Rodgers in the playoffs and all that stuff. I actually think it's like, I think there is actually a difference in potential. Now, the Bills, the thing that you'll love about Buffalo is like, they realize their potential all the time. Like they're consistent. They win a ton of games. Their coach wins all the time. They make the playoffs all the time. And so like they'll get, like the Jets will miss the playoffs more than the Bills were. At least that's how I feel. I know you don't like Buffalo this year, but I do actually think the Jets' potential as like a team this year, whatever kind of imaginary mark you want to set for them, is basically as high as any, I don't know, non-Kansas City team that exists.
I want to give a hat tip to our pal, goes on Twitter, Roto Pat on Twitter, Pat Doherty, who works for NBC Sports. I think he's a great follow, like fantasy football, like writer and like podcaster for NBC. I think he's great, and he's really funny on Twitter with the NFL. And he tweeted something today that kind of like that struck me a little bit, and it was like Bills hype fatigue is leading to like what he called like Bills derangement syndrome, which like people think. Like people like maybe like and it forced me to kind of like evaluate my opinion a little bit. Like, has the pendulum, because we loved Buffalo last year, I thought Buffalo was going to win the Super Bowl last year, has the pendulum kind of swung too far in the other direction where people, and I'll put myself in the mix here, are we maybe even like underrating Buffalo a little bit here? I'm forced to kind of consider that a little bit. I still now I think like the bull case for Buffalo is like you need Sherfield and you need like Dalton Kincaid and you need Gabe Davis to maybe take a step forward. I don't even know if these things are possible, right? You need that to happen. And then you need both Von Miller and Leonard Floyd, two aging pass rushers, to both stay healthy and also kind of play at the height of their powers. It's a really good secondary, obviously, and they have some good linebackers, and linebackers, I don't know how much they matter in today's NFL. I think it's a lot to ask for this Buffalo team to beat Kansas City in the playoffs, and I know they beat them in the regular season last year, to beat Cincinnati in the playoffs, and I love Josh Allen, and I think it'd be great for the NFL if Buffalo won. I'm not rooting against the Bills. I agree with you, man. I think when it comes down to it in the playoffs, I trust the Jets defense more than I trust the Bills defense, and I'm willing to be proven wrong on that. I think I'm with you here on Jets higher ceiling than Bills. Anthony DeBundo joins us now on the show. He's done an amazing job with us here over the last couple of weeks, giving us bets for the Women's World Cup. He does great work for our friends over at the Action Network. He is on Twitter at his name, at Anthony DeBundo. And Ken, he is fresh off a 50-1 cash this morning on Thursday morning on Morocco to advance out of the group, which is historic. And Germany doesn't advance to the women's the women's knockout stage for the first time in history, and Morocco goes. So Anthony is on cloud nine right now.
The United States, Anthony, obviously we haven't talked about them yet. Going to play Sweden coming up here in a little bit. And when is this match on? Monday or Tuesday? This match is on
Sunday morning at like 5 a.m.
Sunday morning. The days really messed me up with this. So they're going to play Sunday morning. And, you know, especially for somebody like me, Anthony, where it's like, you know, if a game is on and before I go to bed, I'll watch it for a half, or I wake up and I try to read what happened. I mean, the only thing that's really going to kind of come through is how is the United States playing? And it's been like a big topic of discussion, obviously, like Carly Lloyd's comments, really fortunate to get through to the next round. You know, the MVP of the match was the Post in their final match. So just of group play. So just a lot of like kind of narrative swirling that this team's really underachieving. And yet despite that, I see that they're favored to beat Sweden in the next match. So I think that's interesting. US minus 175 to qualify for the next round, Sweden plus 125 at BetMGM. So kind of a full breakdown maybe of this US Sweden match. I'm sure it's the match that everyone listening would want to bet more than anything else.
Yeah, so it's interesting to note the market has moved towards Sweden. So most books open the United States minus 110, 115 immediately after the matchup was confirmed, which was a couple days ago, and we've seen a steady stream of a movement toward the Swedes. And I generally agree with it. I think you're getting to the point now where it's starting to get a little expensive. I would still play some to advance. You can find plus 140 out there on the Swedes. This is the Swedish team that beat the United States pretty badly at the Olympics in 2021 and was kind of the first warning sign that maybe this U.S. team isn't quite as good as it used to be and set them on a train of events here. Now, the interesting thing from the group stage, you know, the Netherlands match is probably the one everybody watched, and you saw the building blocks of what is the problem. The Dutch put an extra player in midfield. The U.S. made a bet that when they could win the ball high up the pitch off the Dutch, they would have more attackers forward, and they would be able to strike quickly, direct, get to the penalty area, and get really high-quality shots. That bet has not paid off. United States 20th in pass completion rate out of 32 teams in this World Cup. It's really bad, really concerning, and outside the top 5 in passes into the penalty area as well. So they're not getting the ball. The attack is breaking down way too far up the chain, and now Rose Lavelle is suspended for this match. She picked up 2 yellow cards in each match against the Dutch and the Portuguese. She is suspended, and she's been our best ball progressor when she's on the pitch. They've been double teaming Sophia Smith. Alex Morgan has looked off the pace. So there are real question marks about this attack that I don't think anyone has really come close to answering. And the biggest criticism of the manager coming in was this lack of a plan, lack of tactics, too rigid. And that's been exactly the problem. So I don't know that they'll solve it this tournament. Now, the defense has been elite. They've only conceded 1 shot on target. They've only conceded 0.7 expected goals. So they've been the second best defense in the tournament. So I think we have to get not too carried away with how bad the U.S. has been. They still have the talent. They can still put it together. But Sweden is the best team they've played so far. And if they play like they did the first two or the last two matches, they will lose to the Swedes.
Are you going to be betting on Sweden to advance?
Yes, I did bet some Sweden to advance. Plus 140, like I said, is out there. I bet that. And I also grabbed plus a half. But now the plus a half is getting a little juicier because you have to lay 130, 135 on that at this point because of the way the market's moved.